So today we're going to be making an abstract artwork by combining the different types of lines that we practiced on our first day together and the different types of geometric shapes. Today I'm using my oil pastels and I'm just using a few of the different colors that I have. So I have my red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and I'm going to use my black pastel when I make my lines today. You can use whatever colors you like for whichever shapes and lines you like, but I will be using my black oil pastel to draw my lines so that it's easier for you to see my lines on top of my shapes at the end of my drawing. Again, you can use whatever colors you like for any shapes and lines you want, but I'm using black just so that my lines will be easy to see. So I tried to draw my shapes in order, and I made one of each to make my drawing. The first shape that we practiced together was a circle, so I practiced by drawing a small circle and then filling it in. And then I practiced making a large circle and filling it in. And one of the reasons that I used my oil pastels is because the oil pastels are softer than crayons, and it makes it a little bit easier to fill in my shapes quickly if I use the oil pastels. You could use crayons to do this part of your artwork as well, but the oil pastels are a little bit easier to fill in your shapes, very solid and bold colors really quickly because they're so soft. The next shape that we practiced together was oval. So I practiced making a small oval, and then I made a large oval. And I filled them both in. The next shape that we practiced together was a triangle, and if you remember, I made a triangle with 3 corners, and I connected the corners with 3 sides. And then I filled it in. And then I tried making a large triangle. Again, 3 corners, 3 sides. And then I filled in my triangle. The next shape that we made together was a square. I made my square again with the corners 1, 2, 3, 4 corners and 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. And then I filled it in. Now I'm going to make a small square. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm filling it in. Then we practiced making rectangles together. So if you remember my rectangles, I did 4 corners, but 2 were close together, and then 2 were farther away. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 shorts and 2 longs. And I colored that in. And then I drew a long rectangle. I think I will actually put my long rectangle up here in this large empty space. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I colored that in. So I practiced all my shapes. Now some people practice doing the pentagon shape, but I'm not putting that in my drawing. If you want to, you are welcome to try drawing the pentagon in yours, but I'm not going to draw any on mine. I'm going to move on to the different types of lines. So the first type of line we practiced together was a straight line, and if you remember, we started on one side of the paper and we made our line go all the way to the other side. So I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to make my straight line go all the way across the page. And I'm using the black oil pastel just so that you can see when I cross across these shapes, you'll still be able to see my line, but you can use whatever color you want. The next type of line I made was a curved line. Someone called it a swooping line. It swooped around to curve across the page. The next type of line we learned was a wavy line. That was the one that slithered across the paper like a snake or a worm. And I'm going to make that line next. So I'm swooping from side to side. All the way across. The next kind of line we learned was a zigzag, which turns from side to side, but it stops and turns a corner. So I'm going to draw my zigzag next to go straight and then turn, turn, back and forth, back and forth across the page. We also practiced learning how to make a jagged line. A jagged line is a little bit like a zigzag, except it's out of control. It's not as even. So I'm going to make a zigzag across the corner of my paper. Looks like this. Jagged, zigzag. Another type of line we learned was a dotted line. And that was like if I lined up polka dots in a row, I'm going to make a dotted line across the corner of my page. Little polka dots all in a line. And we also learned a dashed line. So I'm going to make my dashed line. Glides on the page and then jumps, glides and jumps, glides and jumps, all the way across the paper. So those were the different types of lines. One thing I noticed was that on my types of lines chart, there were 2 lines we hadn't tried yet. And if you want to try adding those to your artwork, you can. One of the types of line is called a scalloped line. A scalloped line looks a little bit like the surface of the ocean. It's where you curve your line and then stop and curve it again. Stop, curve it again. It just keeps curving and stopping all the way across. That one's called scalloped. And then the last kind of line we didn't try yet is called a spiral. My lines chart has a spiral. Some people wanted to try that. So the way a spiral works is if you start in the middle and you make your line curve around itself. It's a little bit like a snail. It just keeps going around itself. It reminds me a little bit of drawing a circle, except it never closes. It stays open. That's all the different types of lines and all the different types of geometric shapes that we've used so far, and we have combined them together to make an abstract artwork just like Wassily Kandinsky's artwork that we've looked at this month.